Right on the money, well, 20 seconds late. Welcome to the November 25th Special Planning and Development Subcommittee meeting. I'm the chair of the committee, Jason Grow. To my right is the co-chair. No, you're not the co-chair, you're the vice chair. I always say co-chair. You don't like much co-chair. Val Gelman, Counselor at Large. On my left, we have Ward 2 Counselor Dylan Benson. We have in the audience with us Lyons Jones, who's our legislative aide. We have our Grace Poirier, our city clerk, and we have our city solicitor online to help us through this. I'm going to read this quick thing. The public is welcome to attend in person. Zoom link to access the meeting remotely is also available. Join from computer, smart device via, well, I can give you the link, but you're already here. This meeting was called because we managed to get through the question and answer period on the application for Main Street number 20, which I guess I should read that too. This is for regarding special council permit 2024-003 Main Street number 20, map 7 lot 94, GCO sections 1.8.3 standard to be applied, 1.10.1a jurisdiction of the city council, 3.2.2 footnote A dimensional requirements for multifamily dwellings and their accessory uses other than signs, minimum lot area open space per dwelling unit, 2.3.18 conversion to or new multifamily access, conversion to or new multifamily or apartment dwelling of 7 or more dwelling units, 3.1.6b building heights in excess of 35 feet, and 5.75 special permit criteria for a major project for the conversion to a mixed commercial residential space in the commercial business, central business district, excuse me. That's what we are tasked with finishing up here with. If there's any questions from anybody about what each of these zoning ordinance sections apply to, I'm sure you're all aware of what they are.
No questions from me.
Okay.
I have just a comment.
Yes, you have a
For the
comment,
public,
please.
just to let the public know that the draft minutes are available from November 20th of our last P&D meeting at Kairos, which was a committee of the whole. And they are available on the city website under city council if you want to follow along, but they won't be approved until tomorrow
At the city council.
at city council meeting.
So the purpose of this meeting was that we needed to make sure that we had proper motion language crafted and ready to go. There was also any last minute questions and concerns and issues that we need to talk about as a committee. And also I've asked Attorney Ellison, she had questions that were raised about the potential repair accessibility to the wall. And so I've invited her to make a statement or address that issue from the point of view of answering the questions that we had asked at the last P&D meeting. So unless there's any objections, we'll sort of turn that quickly over to her and then we'll get back onto our.
May I just ask
yeah.
a question, a technical detail on that? So will the additional information that she has provided us since our November 20th meeting
Yes,
be available in our packet
It has
or
been.
for the public?
it is,
Okay.
yeah, it's
For tonight's meeting?
well, it was already sent to us.
I know it's been
It's going to
sent.
be sent to the full
So-
council.
so
I think it's already
the-
been, yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, the full council will have access
Awesome.
to it. I just figured she's here, we're here.
Yeah, great.
We would the issue, so.
Thank you.
Would you like to come up here? Would that be easier?
It might be easier, and I'll ask Mr. DeLulo to come up with you so he can walk you through it. I just think it's easier to have a table.
Yeah. No,
I need to.
she's not a panelist.
No.
So I need to make her a panelist.
Share my screen.
But you're gonna swear her in. Like, that was weird.
I can-
Who else is on the committee? You, okay.
Okay.
Terrific.
Should be a panelist.
All right, for the record, no, that's fine.
So, Mr. Chairman, for the record, Deborah Ellison Law Office, 63 Middle Street, Gloucester. And with me tonight is Mr. Vandelulo. With your contact information.
Yeah, Melrose, Massachusetts, 16 Crystal Street.
And so tonight I thought it would be helpful to answer the questions with regard to the maintenance of the wall and how that would be done. And so Mr. DeLulo has put together a sketch that shows the machinery and how it fits the sketches to scale. So if you want to just walk them through it.
Yeah, on the first slide that you're looking at here, we've looked at it two different ways. We've looked at it from normal maintenance and we've looked at it from heavy maintenance. In a normal maintenance situation, we've got a 5,000-pound forklift, which we can use to access the wall. And we come through the garage so we can pick up building materials, whatever we may need to work on that wall from the street through the garage and get into that back area. So that we can access that wall, bring in supplies, bring in maintenance materials. And you can see that in the upper right-hand corner there, we've got some movable scaffolding that we can raise up to 18, 20, 30 feet, whatever we need to get to the face of that. We've also shown that the stairway enclosed in a basically a chain link enclosure that's removable. So we can remove that enclosure, move that stair if we need to, and get to the face of that lower wall. If you look at where the pointer is now, excuse me, the dark outline is the face of that lower retaining wall, which everybody seems to be concerned about. And the area that's in question is that 8-foot wide section right there that'll have the removable stair and the chain link. And again, if you're standing in the garage, you can see that entire wall. It's completely open to the building. So we can handle routine maintenance should it be required from access through the garage. If you want to go to the next one, Deb. If heavy maintenance is required on that wall, excuse me, we can provide access to that entire wall and bring in heavy pieces of repair material should we have to, using a 15-ton crane. You see the crane located on the side on our property. And if you look on the right-hand side, you can see the crane boom, the crane with an 8-foot boom on it, and the red area is our building. So that we can easily get materials up over the building and into that area behind the building if necessary. I will say that the majority of those granite blocks in that wall probably weigh, I'm going to say, somewhere between 6,000 and 10,000 pounds, because granite at 175 pounds a cubic foot, pretty heavy.
So just to clarify, you're saying 6,000 to 10,000
At least
pounds at least?
for
Okay.
those granite blocks.
Okay.
Each
And
one.
those granite
Each
blocks,
one,
we don't
okay.
expect to move. What we would expect in a severe situation is that some of the granite blocks may have to be adjusted, filled in around, just some minor repair. And in that case, we would use more than likely just a small 5,000-pound lift, or excuse me, fork truck that we had shown before. But to answer questions about how we would access the back of the building if we needed to, I say we can do it. General maintenance, should we need it with the small equipment, and large scale maintenance if we needed to with a 15-ton crane. But I think that we do have access, and I think it would work very well should we need to do that.
Any questions, Val?
So, through the chair, to Deb, Attorney Ellison, so you agreed on a condition. Can you elaborate a little bit on that in terms of it being something that you would do every 3 years, an inspection
Right.
at your expense.
We agreed that we would do an inspection of the wall, which would be a visual survey of the wall every 3 years. And if at that time it was determined that there was any need to do repairs, then those repairs would be done. And this indicates how that would be done. I think at the last hearing, although the professionals were very certain that there was a way to do the maintenance, it's difficult for lay people to envision that. So I asked Mr. DeLulo to do some research and find some equipment that would allow us to do that work, and that's what this is the result of.
And just a follow-up question. And with a lot of the questions that came up at the meeting on the 20th, you were very clear that those issues would always be the owner's issues and would not have nothing to do with the city.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
It's a private property issue.
As I'm thinking about this though, could there be a way to, once the project is done, to give a report about this wall? Is there, would that be something that could be agreed upon?
I believe that's in the conditions for the
Okay,
planning
I
board.
just to make sure that's clarifying to folks, that that is in that is the planning board agreed to that. That is a condition that the planning board put on, and you
Yes.
agreed to that.
Mhm.
Okay, just to,
Incorporated.
yeah, just to make sure, because I did see that, but I want to just make sure, because I ask sometimes rhetorical, just so people have a better understanding, and I appreciate that, so thank you.
All right, any other questions from the council? No, you good?
No.
You good? I think that's good. Thank you very much. All right, so unless there's anything else question-wise, we'll just get to the motion and then we can
a long
go through
one.
that. Thank you. You want I should read, or you want to read it? I'll read it. I'll read it. Ronnie called me up and said, you should practice in the mirror. All right, again, we have all the references for the various zoning ordinance citations in here, but we don't need to go through them individually. So I'm going to move that based on the city departmental reports, the Weston and Sampson Engineering Peer Review Report, the Traffic Impact Assessment Report, the revised project plans dated 10/15/2024. Did you get a copy of this to read in, to follow through? Do you have an extra copy? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman.
Sorry about that. Where was I? The revised project plans dated 10/15/2024, the October 25th, 2024 Planning Board recommendation, the January 12th, 2023 variances granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals, the July 25th, 2023 Historic District Commission Certificate of Appropriateness, and the testimony and documents submitted at the Planning and Development P&D Committee meetings. The P&D Committee finds that 20 Main Street LLC's application for a 24-unit residential mixed-use development located at 20 Main Street, Assessors Map 7, Lot 94, satisfies the criteria set forth in Section 1.8.3 to the extent that it, 1, will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the ordinance, 2, will not adversely affect the neighborhood, the zoning district, or the city to such an extent as to outweigh the beneficial effects of said uses, and 3, meets the criteria necessary for the grant of a special permit, that being A, social, economic, and community needs that will be served by the proposed uses, B, traffic flow and safety, C, adequacy of utilities and other public services, D, neighborhood character and social structure, E, qualities of the natural environment, F, potential fiscal impact, and G, vulnerability to flooding and flood damage, taking into consideration projections for sea level rise. And the requested major project special permit also meets the criteria set forth in GZO section 5.7.5A through E, and therefore the P&D subcommittee recommends that the council, 1, grant special permits pursuant to sections 1.8.3, 2.3.18, and 5.75 to allow the new multifamily building with 7 or more units and a major project with 11 or more dwelling units on the site located at 10 Main Street, 20 20 Main Street. Thank you for that catch. That would be awkward. Site located at 20 Main Street, subject to the following conditions. 1, prior to the commencement of any site work, the applicant shall provide evidence that it has a binding agreement with the city for the payment of the cost of acquiring and planting 2 street trees. Prior to applying for a building permit, number 2, the applicant shall have structural engineer complete a pre-construction survey of the retaining wall in the rear of the property. The applicant's structural engineer shall monitor the wall for subsidence or movement and submit stamped written confirmation that the wall is sound prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit. 3, the applicant shall fund a third-party building code compliance review of the construction plans and a fire code review of the same plans. 4, applicant shall comply with section 5.11 inclusionary housing requirements by providing 3 units affordable for individuals earning 60% average median income and 1 unit at 80% average median income as determined by HUD on site within the multifamily development, and further that these units, whether for rent, lease, or purchase, shall remain subject to the affordable requirements in perpetuity. 5, as required by section 511, inclusionary zoning requirement, prior to applying for a building permit, the applicant shall submit the following to the Community Development Department. A, the Planning Department's project information sheet along with documentation that the proposed sale price or rent of the affordable units are consistent with the applicable subsidized housing inventory income limits at 60% and 80% respectively, as required in section 5.11. B, the proposed affordable housing restriction for each affordable units. C, if the units are to be offered for homeownership units, a condominium master deed. D, the proposed affirmative fair housing marketing plan for the affordable units. E, written verification from the Community Development Department that all requirements have been met shall be submitted along with the building permit application. Requirement number 6, the affordable housing units shall be provided in proportion to market rate units consistent with the following schedule. This is building permits for market rate units percentage and building permits for affordable housing units. Up to 30%, none is required. These are also in the ordinance themselves, which is repetition. 30 to 50% on the market rate units requires at least 10% on the affordable units. Over 50 to 75%, at least 40%, and over 75% to 89%, at least 70%. At 90%, 100% are required to be submitted. Number 7, the affordable units shall have the same construction methods and physical characteristics as and be intermingled with other units in the development. Prior to applying for a certificate of occupancy, the following conditions apply. Number 8, the affordable housing restriction for each affordable unit shall be executed and recorded with the Essex Registry of Deeds. Number 9, as-built plans detailing all utilities shall be submitted to and approved by the Building Department and the Department of Public Works for review of consistency with the permit plans. Number 10, the applicant shall replace the fence on the property line between the site and 33 Middle Street, and all plantings shall be completed, specifically the landscaping and buffering plan on the property line between site and 33 Middle Street. Number 11, the applicant shall pay for the curb-to-curb restoration of the pavement, including grind and inlay of new pavement and restoration of the sidewalk along its frontage on Main Street. Number 12, the landscape plan shall be fully planted and maintained. And 13, every 3 years after the occupancy permit is issued, the applicant owner of the property at their expense shall cause a licensed structural engineer to conduct an inspection of the condition and structural integrity of the retaining wall, and that inspection report shall be submitted to the building commissioner. 2, the conditions contained within the special permits granted pursuant to sections 1.8.3, 2.3.18, and 5.75 are incorporated herein by reference as though fully stated herein. The P&D committee further recommends that the city council grant special permit pursuant to GZO sections 1.10.1, subsections A and 2, and 3.2.2 footnote A, to permit lesser minimum lot area an open space per dwelling unit on condition that the applicant meets the requirements and conditions attached. The Planning and Development Committee finds that the reduction of lot area dwelling unit from 2,500 square feet per dwelling unit to 590 square feet per dwelling unit, and the reduction of open space dwelling unit from 1,250 square feet per dwelling unit to 86.9 square feet per dwelling unit is in keeping with neighborhood character and structural density of the neighborhood. And finally, 3, the conditions contained within the special permits granted pursuant to sections 1.83, 2.3.18, and 5.7.5 are incorporated herein by reference as though fully stated herein. The P&D Committee further recommends that the City Council grant a special permit pursuant to GCO sections 1.10.1A1 and 3.1.6B to permit building height in excess of 35 feet, namely to 37 feet 4 inches. The P&D Committee finds that the increase in allowable height to 37 feet 4 inches is consistent with neighborhood character and will not be substantially detrimental to the neighborhood because of obstruction of views, overshadowing of other properties, impairment of utilities, or other adverse impacts. And I so move.
Second.
Moved by me and seconded by Councilor Gilman.
Mr. Chairman, I have a point of order.
What is your point of order?
On number
No, no,
10,
point of order, but-
on number 10 condition, it states that we will install the plantings, et cetera, that are shown on the buffering plan.
Yeah.
The buffering plan shows work on 33 Middle Street, which we would not be able to do without their permission. So I think that needs to be reflected in there since it's something that would be completely outside of our control.
Would we could, I understand your thing. Thank you for bringing it up. Let me just check with our city solicitor. Suzanne,
Yes, thank you.
did you hear the question?
I did hear the question. That condition can be amended to state,
Subject to permission of the,
yeah, subject to the permission of the property owner of 33 Middle Street.
Okay.
anybody want to make a motion to amend that?
I'd like to amend the motion by stating in item number 10, the applicant shall replace fence on the property line between the site and 33 Middle Street, and all plantings shall be completed, specifically the landscaping and buffering plan on the property line between site and 33 Middle Street by inserting subject to the permission of the property owner
Of 33.
of 33 Middle Street. And I so move.
Second.
Moved to second. Any discussion on the motion? None? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Since the owner of 33 Middle Street is here, is that acceptable? I mean, obviously, if you would have to give permission for them to do this. Okay. But that, if you withhold permission, it doesn't hold up their occupancy permit. Right. Okay. So I want to make sure that you understand what we're dealing. Any other issues on the condition? Okay.
No, Mr. Chair.
All right, so,
Need a glass of water?
yeah, and maybe a scotch. I'm not thinking of that. Any other do you want to discuss any? Yeah,
Some discussion.
fire away, Val, it's the time to do it.
So, some of the points that I would like to reference in our discussion before we vote this is that the project will bring a new mixed commercial and residential space to Main Street, bringing a retail use back to this street front of the site. And the influx of 24 residential units in the downtown area will augment the customer base of nearby merchants without just that's fine. I also like to state that the project will also comply with the city's inclusionary housing requirement with 4 on-site affordable units, 3 at 80%.
360.
60% and 1 at 80. Thank you. The 1 off-street parking space is required in the CB district for each residential unit. For 24 units, 24 spaces are required. The project will have a total of 26 spaces with 2 handicap accessible spaces. There's a 20-foot wide access road via Chisholm Court with appropriate access to accommodate Gloucester Fire apparatus. That was an issue that we were concerned with, and that was verified at the site visit. All necessary utilities are readily available in Main Street. The height of the building is 37.4 and is consistent with other buildings in that area. Blackburn Tavern, located at 1 Washington Street, has a roof peak of 51 feet. The cupola excluded with a facade height of 45 feet. The building at 1-7 Main Street is significantly taller at 57 feet. The building at 92 Main Street is 58 feet high at the Main Street facade and is also in the historic district. Other comments that I would just like to state in our discussion before we vote this is some of the highlights, the qualities of the natural environment. The site has more than the required lot area of 10,000 square foot at 14,160 square feet. The fiscal impact, the improvement in occupation of the site for mixed use will increase its value, add residential tax income to the city, and create a greater consumer base for local businesses and services. Other things to mention, in the major project criteria under 5.7.5, the project has direct access to and from Main Street via Chisholm Court, which is only used by the site and the abutting property at 14 Main Street. Municipal sewerage, the provision is not applicable as the project will be connected to municipal sewer. Site plan requirements, the site plan shows required access points, drainage, and utilities serving the building. There is no access to the project from minor streets serving single-family homes. A landscape plan will incorporate shrubbery and other plantings along the side of the building, and existing vegetation at left rear of the site will remain. All requirements of the zoning ordinance and building code are satisfied. The public good will be served by adding more housing units to the city's supply of housing stock, including affordable units. Under 3.22, sections 1.101A, number 2, and 3.22, footnote A, the minimum lot area per dwelling unit and minimal open space per dwelling unit or both may be decreased by special permit. In this case, the required lot area per dwelling unit is 2,500 square feet, and the required open space per dwelling unit is 1,250 square feet. The project will have 590 square feet of lot area per dwelling unit and 86.9 square feet of open space per dwelling unit. The special permit to decrease this minimum should be allowed because such lesser lot areas and open spaces in keeping with the neighborhood character and structural density of the neighborhood. The vast majority of the buildings on Main Street sit at or near all lot lines and have little open space. Let me think what else is important. Oh, this is, I kind of touched upon this, but sections 1.101A1 and 3.1.6B. This is important just in terms of getting the language correctly here, which we did in the motion. But a special permit for building height is requested for the building height of 37 feet 4 inches to accommodate ground level parking below the building with 3 levels of dwelling units above that. While this height is over the allowed height of 30 feet, which is not required to have a city council approval, that would only be the zoning board, but this is now in our area. The buildings on Main Street that meet or exceed the proposed building height are similar, as I mentioned earlier. The project also has been designed to minimize any new obstruction of views because there are open corridors on both sides of the building. And the original plan did have 4 levels, and it was predicted to be at 45 feet, and that has been reduced to 37 feet 4 inches. And also the applicant has relocated the HVAC equipment towards the front of the building and installed screening to improve the rooftop view. Let me think what else I have that's important.
Just for clarity, just if that's okay, are you reading from like, what are you reading
I'm
from?
highlighting, I'm highlighting the things that were important to me in looking at this.
Okay, just so is this where, just what you were getting from,
Yeah.
just so for record, I'm just curious what
Yeah.
you're getting, are you getting it from the application
It's
itself?
from the application, but it's my opinion.
I totally,
of
yeah,
the things
no, I
that are
appreciate it,
important.
just so for the
One of the
record. so-
things we've learned through past permitting is that requisite criteria is what we need to be on top of in terms of what our opinions are on these types of special.
I appreciate it, thank you.
So having said that, and I think tomorrow we'll learn a little bit, we'll be reviewing some of the overshadowing issues. But, you know, for now, I will say that, that we need to, determine here that the question the city council has is to answer the question of, if the 7 feet 4 inches over the 30 feet, right, is substantially detrimental to the neighborhood as a whole. And in the area of shadowing, some of the shadowing, it needs to be compared to a 30-foot building. And the difference between that and something that's 35 or over, where we need to approve it, is minimal. It should be compared to the shadow cast by an existing single-story building that comprises only a small portion of the site. And based on the above discussion of both the view and shadowing, the project's consistent with the neighborhood character and will not be substantially detrimental to the neighborhood because of obstruction of views, overshadowing of other properties, impairment of utilities, or other adverse impact, which were discussed. And the project, having been reviewed by the Historical Association, is consistent with the architecture of the area. And I think that that is just about all. One more is the grant special permits pursuant to section 1.8.3, 2.3.18, and 5.75 to allow the conversion to a new multifamily building with 7 or more units. As mentioned in the motion, that the requested special permit is in harmony of items, including it won't adversely affect the neighborhood, the zoning district, or the city to such an extent to outweigh the benefits of said uses, meet the criteria necessary for the grant of the special permit, social, economic, community needs that will be served, traffic flow and safety, adequacy of utilities, public service, and neighborhood character. And then finally, with the last 2 comments is granting a special permit pursuant to GZO section 1.101A2 and 3.22 footnote A. Is to permit less minimum lot area and open space, and reduction of lot area dwelling space is keeping with the neighborhood character. And those are just all important. We want to be very, very clear. And I will be supporting this motion tonight. But I will be open-minded to hear tomorrow the public comments and the presentations. And it is possible that minds can be changed, and I've done that before with 114 Main Street. So I just wanted to say that we've put a lot of work into this. It's been passionate. But I think we've done there's been a lot of movement to listen to the needs of the neighborhood and make some concessions, and that's appreciated. So I'll be supporting this. Long-winded, but needed to be said.
Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Ellen, you got anything?
You can go first. If
No,
you-
no,
Okay.
okay.
Okay, no, well, thank you, Val, and first off, thank you to everyone who I've heard from in the neighborhood and also listening, and we've had really an in-depth conversation about this and also presentation, and this has been a long time going. This has gone on for how many months now? But with that being said, and I want to allow the public hearing to go on, I will not be supporting this project to move forward. I do not believe it does fit within the neighborhood character, but beyond that, I want to allow the public hearing to go on, and I will have more to say once the public hearing, and as Val says, things could change, but I want to allow, again, the voices of those in favor and those against to be heard. So I will expand on my reasoning tomorrow night. Thank you.
All righty. Well, you've hit most of the points, Val, in terms of the requirements of what we're looking at. I mean, it's a good thing to remember that we've spent an awful lot of time on some aspects of this project that aren't actually under the purview of what we're granting in terms of special permits, except in the most sort of broad-based way. I think we've done what we can possibly do to ensure as much as we possibly can, the integrity of the wall behind us, even though that's, again, not specifically in our purview to do, but other than keeping it as a condition and worrying about the safety of the community and neighborhood. We've instituted triennial inspections. We've got an inspection before and after the construction is done. So we have an ongoing awareness of any issues that might rise as part of that. As far as the issues that we're especially concerned with in terms of reduction of lot size and land and open space per dwelling unit, I mean it's close to what we have to an urban environment downtown. It's not reasonable to assume that you're going to have 2,500 square feet per dwelling unit in an urbanized apartment complex. Same with lot space. I think it's really important for people to remember that in the central business district, the applicant could have built a lot line to lot line back setback to front to the street level commercial building without any special permit whatsoever as a matter of right. They could have done that up to 30 feet. The location of that lot would mean that they would be required to provide 0 parking spaces. So the option here is we have a commercial property that is by right 30 feet high, lot line to lot line, and requires no parking. It doesn't add any housing, certainly doesn't add any affordable housing. That is an option that remains available to the applicant if this permit is denied, assuming that any appeals fail in the court level. But that's what that piece of property is zoned for. Now, of course, it's also our zoning ordinances. People say it's not zoned for residential. Our zoning ordinances allow a city council special permit as part of the process specifically to allow us to approve projects that might not be specifically related to the central business, but we are allowing it under a certain set of circumstances, which is what we're looking at. The height issue to me is not an issue because I think that there are plenty of examples of properties down there in that neighborhood area that are at least as high, if not higher than this project intends to be. It has a history of having buildings at least that height in that area, and I think on that property from pictures that I've seen. So I think we're returning to what is consistent with how that neighborhood has been and changed over the decades that Gloucester has been developed. I'm particularly interested in the creation of housing down there. It is in alignment with the 2017 Housing Production Plan that not only suggests that we should be finding new locations for increased housing downtown, but it also allows us to incorporate the inclusionary housing and to bring in 4 new deed restricted affordable units. And despite what people think, the city council cannot dictate that people to build 100% affordable units anywhere. That's not within our purview. Property owners have property rights. We already have the inclusionary housing ordinance to incorporate affordable units when we can legally do that. Any other big major project that's affordable 100% is usually done by nonprofits using grant sourcing and tax funding and all that. That's not what we have here. But what we do have here is 24 new units that are going to be available that are modest in size. So they're going to be targeted towards young families, single people perhaps, folks who decided to downsize and wanted to live in an apartment close to downtown. I know people who live across the street in the apartment building there, which is a direct neighbor. And it works out really well for folks who want to live downtown, who don't have a car, don't want a car, don't need a car that often, but would like to be able to enjoy the downtown area and live in a walkable environment. So I think that's a tremendous addition. Certainly, I think that far outweighs the idea of a commercial property being put in there with no parking and no other requirements other than the zoning, than a building permit. So I think we've done everything we can to address public concerns, questions. I think the council has tried to be very open to listening to all of these concerns and issues that have been raised during this process. I'm sure we'll hear more tomorrow night at the public hearing. And I think for that, I'm a little out of talkability. So
Can I
I'm
talk
gonna,
again?
yeah, of course, but I will be supporting this moving forward, and I will be encouraging the council to look at this as a positive addition to downtown in general.
So I was extraordinarily impressed with the amount of conditions that were made. You know, I've been on P&D now, this is my 9th year, and probably I've never seen so many conditions. And I think the conditions were because we were thoughtful, the planning board was thoughtful, and we really tried to make sure that we understood what some of the neighbors were saying, and I think that that's appreciated. The ones that really stand out to me is, prior to the commencement of any site work, the applicant shall provide evidence that it has a binding agreement with the city for the payment of the cost of acquiring and planting 2 street trees. We also, the applicant shall have a structural engineer complete a pre-construction survey of the retaining wall in the rear of the property. The applicant's structural engineer shall monitor the wall for subsidence or movement and submit stamped written confirmation that the wall is sound prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit. The applicant shall fund a third-party building code compliance review of the construction plans and a fire code review of the same plan. I know that we even looked at the corner, that side curb, to make that turn, and the fire department's already been there, but this would just be codified as a third-party review prior to the applicant shall fund that third-party building code compliance review of the fire code, which I think is helpful. And then the other one, well, we've got the fence, we've already talked that, and I think Peter appreciates that. I mean, most of us spent some time at his property, and I think that will be very helpful. And then the landscape plan shall be fully planted and maintained, and then I think that those are the biggest ones that popped out that I thought were worthy of mentioning. So,
And I think, to be fair, that a number of those conditions came about over public concern and public input. So, I mean, I'm certain that there are people who'll be displeased with this permit going forward, but I also guarantee you there are people who would be pleased with the fact that we're going to be increasing housing stock in the downtown area, which is something that has been long talked about in terms of trying to create a more energized commercial zone as well. And the mixing of residential and commercial is a healthy thing when it involves retail and restaurants and other sort of things like that. So I think it's all in all, and keep in mind, as you mentioned before, that this used to be a 4-story apartment building. Well, 5-story. So it already has been reduced in size and scale, so I think that fits in better. Do you have anything else you'd like to talk about?
Nope, I will have more to say tomorrow night, and I would encourage, all who feel, strongly for or against this project to come before the public hearing and be heard. And I've heard from many in my ward, and as the person who represents this neighborhood specifically, I'm here to hear their concerns. And again, as I've said, I will elaborate further of why I'm not supportive of this project. And again, it really comes down to the neighborhood character, but I want to allow, again, the public to be heard.
I think I just want to point out, one of the issues that has come up in previous decisions has been the reasoning behind a declining of a permit or a granting of a permit. And I think that's why I think we've been very, very specific about making sure we articulate as much as we can why we're following the intent of the zoning ordinances. A capricious decision in land court is going to get overturned one way or the other. If it's capriciously given or capriciously denied, the land court is going to say that's not the way that this process is supposed to work. That's what happened with 116 East Main Street. And I think it's really important that whatever decision that we make, we are making it on a defensible footing, that we've made the effort to really look at the project in its entirety and address the issues that have arisen, and can make that decision with the confidence that if we are challenged in whatever decision we make, that we have the backing up of why we've gotten to where we've gotten. So I think that's what we're going to do tomorrow night. If there's nothing else, we'll take a vote on the motion as amended. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No. 2 in favor, 1 opposed. The motion carries. This will be taken up at the City Council's public hearing tomorrow night at 6:30 in Kairos Auditorium. And with that, there's no other business. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you, Solicitor.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Night.